how do I make the most of my limited time with my team when I'm with them? And how do I build a culture where they still want to show up and do their best work? Trying to help them move closer to them as a result of being in the job and being as part of my team. I realized that care wasn't a soft skill at all, but it was a strategy that inspired trust, innovation, and ultimately really drove extraordinary results.
Welcome to Engage Presents. I'm Engage co-founder and president Jake Olson. In this interview series, I ask Engage talent the most common questions we hear from event planners to help you get to know them and their stories in 15 minutes or less. Thanks for listening. Welcome to another episode of Engage Presents. I'm Engage President Jake Olson. Along with me today is Danny Goldberg. Danny, you are a serial entrepreneur. You are a workplace care expert. Look, I've met plenty of serial entrepreneurs in my life. If I know one thing about them and head football coaches are probably the craziest people to walk this planet. So, Danny, I appreciate you giving us a little bit of your insight today. Let me know just do you see a similarity between head coaches and serial entrepreneurs? 'Cause I think they're like very similar.
Yeah, it's funny. I can certainly resonate, but one of the sports that I'm more familiar with than even football or team sports are individual sports. So I grew up boxing, and it's
Okay.
funny. I used to always say boxing and entrepreneurship are so similar, but I think entrepreneurship and any pursuit of sport, coach, etc. There's a lot of parallels that you could draw from.
Absolutely. And so talking about kind of your just professional career, you started building businesses at an early age. So if it's the first business you built in your 20s, or some thereafter, what is kind of your favorite business you built or kind of favorite business story that you were able to kind of develop over the last couple, your career?
Yeah, so I love building businesses, been building businesses since I'm 14 years old actually. So and probably if I had to give you my favorite business that I built, and I've built, sold, failed at numerous businesses since I'm 14, would have to be the first business I ever started. So the first business I started, I was 14 years old. As I mentioned, I grew up in a boxing gym. Boxing, aspired to compete, ended up competing a couple times, and as I was doing that, I was always drawn to the sport for various reasons. Primarily like because of that I thought it was like a me versus me sport. There's one scary person across from you, and you need to fight your way through and really be resilient and tough and get the job done however you could. But when I was 14 years old, training for a while, I was sitting in the backyard with my dad, and I turned to him and I said, "Hey, Dad, how do I build something great in life?" And my dad was an industrial designer. He loved to design products, and he thought for a minute and he said, "Find what you love, and you'll build something amazing." And we're talking, and a couple minutes later, it hit me, and I said, "Let's sell boxing gloves." I'm working at the gym. I'm all obsessed with the sport. Let's sell boxing gloves. And my dad said, "Let's do it." And we spent a couple weeks tinkering, talking about it. And a couple months later, I spit forward my allowance money, the money I earned working at the gym, cleaning the windows, nothing too sexy there. And excuse me, my couple months later, we had a logo, a business plan, and a couple of boxes showed up from Thailand with boxing equipment, and I was off to the races as a 14-year-old kid selling boxing equipment out of a duffel bag. And that business really took off. Not overnight by any means of the imagination, but on weekends, instead of doing sports and activities, my parents would drive me around gym to gym, and I'd sell the boxing equipment, and it ended up becoming a multinational brand, selling equipment to UFC fighters, world champion boxers. I springboarded another business out of that one, where we developed the world's most protective athletic cup, and 95% of the guys in the UFC, Joe Rogan got a hold of it, gave us a live shout out on the UFC event. The website crashed, the business took off. But really, more than the success, when I look back at that business, why it's my favorite, I owe so much to my dad, and specifically my dad's belief in me, because he taught me a lesson that very day when I was 14 years old that I still carry to this day, which is when people feel cared for, and when they have the belief of others, they can achieve the unimaginable. And really, from 14 to my early 20s, that's very much what I experienced.
That's awesome. And what great advice. A very, very cool story. Now, talking about that culture of care. Kind of explain what that is. Expand more on your dad's quote, but how that relates to business and how leaders can kind of take it and implement it into their business.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, to me, really, um, I want to, to explain what a culture of care is to me. Um, my dad really showed me from an early age the power of care, and when you support people, when you show that you believe in them, and when you take care of them, they'll take care of the rest. And I understood that really from an early age, and um, I decided pretty early that this idea of doing more than just business or selling products, I was going to always have to make an impact, make a dent along the way. And that lesson when I was 14 years old, it became the foundation for everything I build moving forward. So after selling my box glove business, I launched a manufacturing company, and care was really at the core of how I built my business and built my team. And specifically, what I mean by care. Is making building a culture where people feel safe, safe to make mistakes, safe to speak up, safe to challenge the status quo, but also safe in their role. Building a culture where people feel understood, where they know that they can come and share their ideas and their aspirations and their goals and their dreams, and that I was going to leave my assumptions at the door and try to really understand who my people were and what's most important to them.
Mm.
And in doing that and building this culture built on safety and built on understanding, there's more connection, higher levels of engagement, higher levels of commitment. And in many ways, I was forced to manufacture this environment. And I had to realize that at the moment that I started building this in my previous business of a manufacturing company, I didn't realize what I was doing then, but I had to do this because I was in my early 20s. My business was actually based in Hong Kong. We had a team of about 10. Um, I was managing the team remotely, would only see them a couple weeks at a time every single year. And I had to do things that were different in regards to how do I make the most of my limited time with my team when I'm with them, and how do I build a culture where they still want to show up and do their best work. And through that, over time, and through really when I'd go overseas to Hong Kong to meet with my team, it was the time that I would spend getting to know them on a personal level, not just like what they do and their function within the company, but really understanding their aspirations, their goals, and trying to help them move closer to them as a result of being in the job and being as part of my team. I realized that care wasn't a soft skill at all, but it was a strategy that inspired trust, innovation, and ultimately really drove extraordinary results.
Mm. I mean, you can kind of just see how powerful that is. And as you say, I mean, it just makes so much sense in my head at least. But I imagine when you do speak and you meet different executives or bosses or leadership roles, uh, tell us about any pushback. I mean, I'm sure, you do get some pushback of people saying, oh, that's a nice story, but, this is a money driven, let just whatever gets the sales. And you kind of have to redirect them saying, I'm not disagreeing with that, but this helps you get more of that. But do you ever receive that kind of pushback?
Yeah, so I think if we're looking at it broadly speaking, there's always going to be a little bit of pushback. And I'd say specifically, I think people today understand that care and building a culture where people feel like they belong and that they're connected, it is vital. I mean, it's almost 2025. I think it's not that we don't understand that care is important, but rather we don't understand how to actually effectively deliver care and what it looks like. Is it going for a coffee? Is it a team lunch? Is it a happy hour? And what's the right depth to actually caring for my people? I've heard this time and time again from people in HR. Like I was actually trained to not deeply understand my people because in the event that I have to fire them or let them go, I'm going
Yeah.
to be in a tough spot. And I know many people actually like believe that or think of when they're thinking about building a team and how do I get to know my people, they still kind of are operating in such a way. And it's really this misunderstanding. So while there's certainly pushback, what I do through my keynote and through my body of work is help people not only understand why care is so essential in the world right now and how we navigate the future, but also how do we effectively deliver this level of care? How do we do it? And that's what I help people understand.
That's really, really cool. You also kind of talk about the importance of a multi-generational team. Can you kind of speak on that and why that's so important as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the world really post-COVID, and I know we're well removed from COVID at this point, but the world turned upside down, and we'll never go back to working how we once worked in the past. And we can't predict what will come in the future and what changes will come. And I mean, there's so much rapid change happening, even right now as we speak. Retirements are increasing, technology is changing. I know we were jamming on it just before this. Like AI is here to stay. And there are five generations of the workforce, all with completely different goals. And it's vital as we think about building cultures, teams. How do we know that that change is here, but actually build the most effective team possible? And I think like the multi-generational aspect of it is just one piece, but it's very real and it's very much here. And I think one thing specifically regarding multi-generational workforce is that um, I actually tend to view it that we're not five generation like sure you can look at it as a generational thing, but I think at the end of the day we're all just individuals and individuals with hopes, dreams, aspirations, goals. And as we think about leadership, it's our job to understand what the individual wants, not yeah, this generation is part of this company and that generation is also part of this company. I need to look at it more generationally. I think we need to really look at it more individually. What is important to that individual and how can I best support them, not just in their role, but in their life?
That's awesome. Uh, you can kind of just tell how much wisdom you've acquired over your career. If you could tell yourself now, or if you now who you are now, if you could tell yourself when you were 14 or 20 or whenever you were kind of starting off with building businesses, what piece of advice would you give a young entrepreneur?
Yeah, maybe just have fun. I think, and I know it might sound a little trite and obvious, but when I look back, I feel like I always felt like the stakes were so high.
Hmm.
And specifically when I look back at building businesses from when I was in high school, turned into college, like the stakes were in reality so low. And I wish, like, when I look back at it, I would have had a little bit more fun along the way and realized, like, it's okay. Like, if this business doesn't work, it's okay. And I failed at plenty of businesses between then and now, and plenty have succeeded. But like the losses, those really do become ultimately your greatest lessons, and I think in many ways have potential to become your greatest gifts. So just enjoy the process and have fun.
That's really great perspective and advice. Danny, thank you so much for joining us today. If you want to book Danny, please visit letsengage.com. You can check out his profile, check more about him, obviously book him. Danny, you are a well of great wisdom and information. We thank you so much for sharing that today. And thank you again for giving us your time.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, stay tuned for more Engage Presents.